Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to episode 10 of Workplace and Conversation podcast. Today we're going to be talking about autism because today is World Autism Awareness Day. And I'm joined by my I'm joined by a guest host, Mark Nicholas. Hello, Mark.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I am Mark Nicholas. I am an autistic comedian. I run a night called Laugh Able, which One Place East very kindly sponsor and have been very supportive of for a good few years now. We've worked a lot together. Us, One Place East, Laugh Able, me. We've done some lovely workshops, haven't we? It's been a lot of fun, hosted some great nights, and it's great to be on here. Chatting to you all, and got some lovely guests as well, haven't we, Saifur?
Familiar face here, some of you will recognise. Ian Fulbrook. Hello, Ian.
Hello there, Saifur. Do you want me to give a little sort of introduction?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Well, I do the news bulletin and the talking news for One Place East, and have also appeared on some of Mark's nights at Laugh Able, doing some impressions and jokes and various bits and pieces. I was diagnosed with autism in 2017, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go on, because obviously there might be some overlapping with his diagnosis and stuff. So I'll explain a bit more about that as we go on. But that's sort of me.
Thank you.
And Nicky, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell everyone a bit about you.
Yeah. I mean, my name's Nicky Vere Compton. I'm an autistic comedian, been on the circuit for a couple of years. Opened my set by going, I'm a short, fat, autistic queer. I'm as autistic as fuck, where normal comes to die. Wah, wah, wah. Mm-hmm. I learned I was autistic in 2014 when I was 43.
So Nicky's also performed at Laugh Able as well. They're absolutely brilliant every time they perform. Really fantastic. So Ian as well. It's a pleasure having you two on my nights, and it's fantastic. And like this thing, autistic people are very talented. I think where people underestimate us being that creative. Either one of you jump in, Ian or Nicky. So, what? Tell us about your diagnosis, and also how maybe performing can either help or hinder with the autism. So, either one of you jump in.
After you, Nicky.
Well, as I said, I learned I was autistic in 2014. I'd already been diagnosed as ADHD in 2011, but the ADHD diagnosis didn't seem to go far enough, so looked into it some more. Typical autistic traits I have is that I am absolutely driven by my big interests, as if my big interests are my guiding star. My communication is I don't understand social codes, social cues, social niceties, wah at all. So ever since I came out the womb, I've been in trouble with communication. I'm very unmasked, so it's obvious to everybody that something's going on. And so when I say I'm neurodivergent, autistic and ADHD, people look relieved. Because I remember when I started coming out as neurodivergent, people just looked so relieved and so said, "Oh well, we thought it must be something." So yes, and I mean it's marvelous for comedy because I'm driven by my interests. Give me a mic and a stage, I can talk about all the things on stage that people run away from in life, and they can't run away because I've got the mic, so it's brilliant for me. I love it.
Brilliant. Love it. Yeah, but that's the thing. There's a lot of stereotypes around autism that we shouldn't be able to talk publicly to people because we're not good socially. But actually, it's more of a, when you're doing comedy, it's more of a one-way conversation anyway. So it's
Exactly. And also,
but
we're terribly good socially with each other. It's only with neurotypicals, you
yeah,
know.
because I guess we all
Because they're
understand.
terrible socially. You know, we autistics are brilliant socially. We have no problems talking to each other.
It's
And we're
just, they're
devastated.
talking to us a lot of the time, but but yeah, what about yourself, Ian? What's all that? When you,
Right.
what was that like?
My sister, who basically her job was a teaching assistant with primary school children. She retired some years ago, and she basically saw some autistic traits in me that she saw in the children. So we tried to get a diagnosis around about 12 years ago or so. Unfortunately, like with most services, there's a shortfall in what you call dedicated staff for things like this. So it got sort of left on the shelf, as it were. So my sister tried about 5 years later in 2017, and I was, how old was I then? 44 I was then. And I go through 3 sessions with basically a locum psychologist, because there wasn't one in Wolf Forest. So it was a locum, and we had to do various tests about, you know, communication skills, social interaction, all that sort of stuff. And then it came back after that I was on the spectrum. It's called adult Asperger's, but we're not allowed to use the term Asperger's because unfortunately it does have a very sort of dark connotation back in history. So it's basically ASD. I've been suffering from anxiety and depression on and off for around about 10 years to then. And it sort of explained to me basically how I was and how I've been coping with life. Not very well in some cases. I'm at the very mild, I don't know, it's you get given a score at the end of it. It's a little bit like a game show. Yeah, Bruce Forsyth, you get 8 out of 10, basically. So the highest score is 23 or something like that, and I was 8 or 9. So basically, I'm at the very mild end of things, but mostly I can cope with it. Mostly I can cope. But there are days where I get very, very frustrated, especially with, you know, as we all mostly live in London, the transport system, I don't drive anymore. The transport system is absolutely despicable. I get annoyed with attitudes of people on public transport, you know, rude and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If a bus doesn't turn up on time or a train doesn't turn up on time, if I'm late for anything, you know, it's sort of much more driven by routine now than I ever used to be. And Nicky was talking about social awkwardness. I hate parties. Any kind of big social gatherings, I'm absolutely awful. I've liked it for years and years and years. And my sister just thought I was just being ignorant and, you know, sort of downright rude by not sort of connecting. But it was just the way I've always been. I don't like making small talk with people. I'm not particularly interested in people's salaries, houses, holidays, or anything like that. You know, because they wouldn't, in my opinion, be interested in me. So, but that's just my way of thinking. So that's sort of been. So I've been diagnosed for 7 years, and yeah, grew up as my sister moved out when I was she was 18. When I was born, she moved out. So I was on my own as a child. So I didn't have anyone to sort of play games with or anything like that. So I had to sort of make my own sort of fun with toy cars, trains, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's sort of it. Yeah, quite complex.
I think it is, but also as well, like what I do notice in like we've had some very interesting chats on politics, as we both know a lot about it. And so I think when it's a particular interest of ours, it could be a way of actually properly sort of communicating. And I don't think also, so I'm not, because I'm like you with big social situations, and I struggle. But what I am good at doing, if you know, like if you're at a party and then people called off into their small groups, I find that easier, because then actually there is that focus or that hyper focus. And like Nicky, you both talked about, you got diagnosed as adults, I was diagnosed when I was a kid. And it was Asperger's then, but again, the connotations to that now, I now say autism. But I was 11 at that time. So 2001. At that time, mental health services were really good. Support. I got amazing support in school, because there was just becoming more of an understanding. And I often find that, like, when you're a child, actually you get and you have a disability, it's easier to get support and access those services. The amount of adults with autism I chat to that go, my diagnosis took 3-4 years. It took about 6 years for me to get support or whatever. I hear some people still going through that process, and the waiting list is huge now. But again, I was quite fortunate. That's funnily enough, my mum was working for what was Daffodils then, is now One Place East. And no, actually, so she was working for Bernardo's, then Daffodils. Anyway, she got a leaflet through about Asperger's, about autism, because she worked for a disability charity, and she was like, okay, this is something Liam, because my twin's also autistic. This definitely sounds like them. There's definitely all these traits. They're struggling, socially, having obsessions. We were obsessed with football. Can tell you any facts about football and everything like that. And obsessed with trains as well. That was another thing. We had to enact exactly as we saw on TV, the Thomas the Tank Engine games and stuff like that. But my mum went into my school, and when she said, I think Mark and Lee are autistic, and it was like, oh no, we tested them for that at Christmas. No, they're not autistic. Like, imagine that as a stocking filler. You go in and you see Santa, and he goes, what would you like for Christmas? Oh, I'll have a monster truck. I don't know, I'm 10 years old then. And they're like, well, how about 30 years of social anxiety? How about it's just, that's what I felt like. But my mum pushed it. We got the diagnosis, we got the support. And because of early intervention, because of support we had, we took part in social skills groups, drama groups, and my older brother's an actor, so actually performance was quite natural for me. And actually drama helped me explore things about myself, and opened up another world for me, because I was so socially awkward. Actually being able to perform, I could pretend to be someone else for a second, and that was great. That just allowed me to be more confident. So Saifur, your nephew's autistic.
Yes, yeah. I live with a 7-year-old nephew, and he, I mean, if I remember correctly, it was about when he was 2 or 3, something like that. His speech kind of just changed, just suddenly, from saying words to not being able to say those words. And his parents, kind of worried at the time, obviously, what's happened to the child when he's talking, saying his words, and then all of a sudden, not, and just he couldn't get his words out. He was mumbling and stuff like that, so he was diagnosed around when he was about 3 or 4. And it's interesting you say that, because I mean, when you say that you have these was it traits and have these interests, right? He currently he's been going through different phases. So um, he goes through phases where he's obsessed with Hoovers. Um, so
Love
he'll
it.
he'll get the Hoover, take it apart, and he'll just sit there with different parts of the Hoover. And so I think
All I
that,
can say, I wish I was.
hey,
Wish I was obsessed with Hoovers. There's places in the state
yeah,
that said,
Well, I think both our partners would probably wish we were obsessed with who is he.
well, I mean,
To
it's
be
not that
fair,
he
like,
does the Hoover,
take
but
my place.
I think it's fabulous that he can take the Hoover apart.
yeah,
Maybe he's going to grow up and become a Hoover designer.
and then
Hang on, does he put it back together though?
he
Or
does put it. Well, no, he
Good.
just leaves it and just wanders off, right?
Oh, God.
But and I remember one Eid time, his parents got him a toy Hoover, a Dyson. He didn't want that at all. He just wanted the real thing. So
Wow.
Well, good for him.
yeah,
Good for him.
yeah.
You know, don't fob off
No,
child autistics with the toy version of the adult thing.
yeah,
As a child autistic, I always wanted the adult version of the adult thing.
But yeah, like it's so like how, because obviously say if you work for a disability charity and again Ian autistic, you work with Ian a lot as well. So like, so when that diagnosis happened and say his parents maybe all don't know what to do, did you feel quite confident because you knew a bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't working at One Place East at the time, so
Oh, okay, yeah.
I didn't know too much about autism back then. So yeah, I think we're concerned, but as a disabled person, I was less what's the word, less anxious, because so I wasn't worried at all at the time. But yeah, I remember his parents like pretty concerned as to what they should do and where they can go and get help and things like that. But yeah, he got diagnosed, and then yeah, they were a lot at ease, and now for the past couple of years he's got this tablet where he's got words and pictures and things like that to help him communicate.
Brilliant.
Fabulous.
Yeah, and then
So he's got an AAC. I think they're called an AAC tablet.
Oh, is it?
To
Yeah,
help him with his speech.
yeah. But for the past year, he's now started to say these words. That's really, really good. And only last weekend he said my name for the first time.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, it's there, but it's with autistic. Because again, I used to work in special needs schools, and obviously I understood the autistic kids more than the other teachers because I knew what exactly they were going through. It wasn't the fact that sometimes it couldn't speak; it was like they didn't have the resources, and that makes sense about your nephew because we're very visual learners. We're basically, I'm not sure if it's the same for you, Ian and Nicky, but in order to learn something, I have to see it. I have to see it actually. Someone has to show me, model it for me. You can't just tell me instructions like assemble together a shoe rack, which I actually had to do a couple of weeks ago. Didn't have a clue. I was looking at these instructions, and it was just going out of my head. And then my girlfriend, she was showing me. Well, the thing is, she's got disability as well. She's got cerebral palsy, so it was harder for her. She couldn't put the shoe rack up herself. I didn't know how to do it, and out of two of us, I kind of need to be the handyman. So we watched a YouTube video of someone putting it together, and then and now I know how to do it. But I'm not sure about your experiences in, Nicky, like in terms of if someone gives you an instruction?
If somebody gives me an instruction, it means absolutely nothing. I mean, I remember having a job where I had to operate I think it was a fax machine. My manager had to, tell me what to do as I was doing it. And then we had to repeat that probably about, I don't know, 15, 20 times. And after because I needed to get it into muscle memory, and then I could do it. So I've got an IQ of 132, but that does not translate in learning how to use anything practical, anything technological. You've got to show me how to do it. I've got to learn the process. I've got to write down the process, and it's no good showing me. You have to physically watch me do it over and over again. I passed my driving test on attempt number 9.
Wow. I mean, I'm learning to drive at the moment, so if I'm not convinced I will pass first time, but my driving instructor, she's really good. We will do things over and over again, just so I can get the hang of it. So, because that's another thing, learning to drive as well. It's like, because there's the lack of spatial awareness as well. We have it, we find it difficult to, it's that hyper focus, that narrow vision sometimes. I didn't learn to ride a bike till I was 14. My mum didn't let me cross the road till I was 15, 16 because I wouldn't. She'd look at the cars as they go, and I just did that and just walked.
Yeah,
it was a bit. So my mum was like, no, she had to show me it over and over again. But eventually I got it, and once I pick up something, I'm actually really good at it. But it takes time, and I think that's what World Autism Awareness Day is about, actually having the patience with us, because we are very capable. You just sometimes need patience with us. And Ian, I'm not sure if you've experienced things like that. Ian, do you want to?
Yeah, good points that you made there, and Nicky. It's all about order and routine. And if you're given anything like it's like a problem-solving exercise. It's like, but you have to show me how to do this. It's like taking apart something or putting something back or something like that. And I try and use sort of logic. It's all to do with that. It's all to do with order, routine, narrow-mindedness in that sort of sense. I do get less frustrated with things now, because I sort of think to myself, then this is how you do it, and just going back to the comedy, for example. I mean, years ago, if you asked me to stand in front of an audience of people and talk about anything, myself or a subject, I would run a mile. I'd run a mile, and you wouldn't see again. But due to One Place East offices, got me to do presentations about mental health most of the time. And that gave me a lot of confidence to stand there in front of people. And now it didn't bother me at all. And then a few years ago, through to, down to Mark again, he put me on the bill at, Ilford Library doing Boris Johnson impression. Yes, I have to wheel that one out because captive audience, she said, what I like, captive audience. So I did that in front of and that was a funny night, because there are about half an hour to go. There's about 15 people in the room. I'm thinking, this will be fine. There's only 15 people here. Within about 20 minutes, that had gone from 15 to 6. All of a sudden, I think I might needed some bicycle clips, because my stomach was going gurgling. I thought, oh God. But it's one of the most amazing things I've ever done. It was just absolutely fantastic. And I'm so looking forward to really getting on with stuff that year to do with comedy. But unfortunately, a certain thing called COVID got in the way for a while. So, yeah. But I'm a bit advertising here. I'm due to be performing along with Nicky and yourself, Mark, to the Laugh Able night in April. So I'm looking for...
Brilliant.
I must get a little set, because that's what I like doing. I like writing a set out, I like going and practicing it and make sure it's right and everything else. But if Mark's seen me, you haven't, Nicky, on stage. Mark's seen me. I tend to take my stuff with me on stage, and it's a little bit sort of regimented and a bit parrot, but it helps me to concentrate and do what I've got to do. Because if I left the notes on a chair somewhere or I'll put them in my pocket, then I wouldn't remember what I've got to say. So again, it's order, routine, problem solving, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think
it's a process.
What I really like about when you do your impressions, Ian, and it actually doesn't surprise me you're good at impressions, because there's this thing that autistic people apparently really good at. Some autistic people are echolalia. I forget the word, but it's where you can mimic someone else and sound exactly like them. We're very good at picking up sounds and voices and
musicalia. It's called a musicalia. It's basically a bit like someone who can play the piano or something like that. You know, you've got a musical. Yeah. I've got an ear for voices, mannerism, and other as well. You know, like Boris, and for example, you got Donald Trump as well. He's a fantastic guy. You know, he does all that. You know, and show here in the wonderful Autism Awareness Day. You know, I love to see people. I like to say that, but I think they're fantastic. So that's you got to do the jazz hands, you know, the fantastic thing. So I left those impressions in cold storage for a while. It's nice.
I need to definitely bring them back out again.
I certainly will do. So yeah, there's this thing. Because we got a diagnosis that we're a bit backward, we're a bit stupid, we're a bit this, but it's autistic people are very clever. They're very industrious. You've got loads of people look at Anne Hegarty, for example, that on The Chase. She's autistic and she's gone on to great success. I watched a really good program the other week on BBC Two presented by Chris Packham. The Nature presenter, and it was about people with autism. I interviewed someone who was a stand-up comedian, a lady. They spoke to Bruce, the DJ, whose son has got a silent form of autism. He doesn't speak at all. And it was a really fascinating and program. So I advise anyone to go on that on the BBC website and look. That is a really fascinating program. Anyway, I'll stop talking now.
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, those of us who are autistic, it's simply a minority neurotype. It's a cliche, but if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. The only thing that autistics really have in common is that we're not like neurotypicals. But we've got 3 autistics here in this podcast. We're all different from each other. We can talk to each other because we're all autistic. We recognize the patterns, but we are 100% individuals in our own right. You have chatty autistics, silent autistics who are in between. What really held me up understanding I was autistic was this idea that I could be an autistic assigned female at birth and be an extrovert, because everything I read about male and female autistics or male presenting or female autistics is that if you weren't introvert, you did not get that badge. Now, I'm not particularly extrovert, but I'm more extrovert than introvert, and that's what held me up. But in practice, you do get extrovert autistics. Or a little bit extrovert autistic like me.
It's a spectrum. That's why they call it a spectrum, because there's so many people different.
So is neurotypicality a spectrum? Every neurotype is a spectrum.
Absolutely. Everyone's different. And I'll give you an example. My girlfriend, I'm not going to say where she works. I'm not going to do that publicly, but she works with apprentices, right? And there was this one. And there was this autistic apprentice that was going to start where she worked, and her boss said, "Oh, she's autistic, so be careful to do sort of jokes around her, and because she might not understand them, and be careful sort of noise." And then she turned around and went, "My boyfriend's a stand-up comedian who's into mosh pits and heavy metal music. Like, it's a spectrum. Like, everyone is different. She might not be like that." So,
But we can turn this on its head. We can talk about neurotypicals. We can talk about the cliches about neurotypicals. They love groups. They love talking. They love talking about the weather. They love small talk. But actually, it's a spectrum, because not all neurotypicals love groups. Not all of them love small talk. They're on a spectrum too. The only reason that that as a community we analyze ourselves to death, just as the neurotypicals analyze us to death and get it wrong, is because there's fewer of us. I would love to see studies into neurotypicality, and and somebody identifying all the patterns and then going, it's a spectrum. It's I mean things like this are really helpful, getting three autistics together, three perspectives, plus yourself, Saifur, with your experience of observing a child autistic.
So Saifur, were you gonna add something?
I was just looking at some facts earlier on, and there are apparently 700,000 autistic people in the UK alone.
And that's just the ones we know about, because for every one person who comes out and goes, "Oh, I'm autistic," there's 10 you look at and go, "You're autistic, but you're masking it. You don't know you are." But I do. We all know who those people are.
Yeah, that gross underestimate, that is 700,000.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other one I read was just 30% of autistic adults in the UK are in any form of paid employment.
And that is because there is, I'll give you examples as well. Like, interviews are like the most stressful things ever, especially for an autistic person who needs to sort of sell themselves. Like, when you're in an interview, you need to sell yourself as this amazing, you need to upsell yourself. And actually, we're so honest. We're like, well, this is what we're like, and this is what we are. We stick to the facts, and sometimes we need time to answer questions. I mean, I was quite fortunate in getting my work because I think they saw me as an asset, because also I was very open in the interview. I went, "I'm autistic, so I'm going to struggle with this, and this." And actually, the interview panel in the school I worked at were very great about it and gave me time to process and understand. And so I think a lot of employers go, "Oh, they're autistic," and then they see them struggling in the interview, go, "No, I'm going to write you off." So actually, but autistic people being unemployed is actually down to employers not being accessible enough, not being understanding, not making that, like, you make an access need for someone in a wheelchair, you build a ramp. What do you do for someone who's got a hidden disability? What do you do with someone who, well, you don't need to move the furniture about, so what do you do? But actually, what you do need to do is allow them time to answer the questions. Or actually, what they're doing now, a lot of employers are starting to do, is sending the interview questions in advance. And actually, for an autistic person, we don't like surprises. We don't like to be thrown with new things at once. And so actually having pre-prepared interview questions helps us prepare, because I don't know why they just throw that on you, because it's like, for anyone that would be challenging. For an autistic person, so we need time to process. So that's a really interesting statistic to say, and I do honestly think there still needs to be a long way to go for employers to start actually becoming more accessible. But this is why the One Place Sees creative projects are so great. The workshops we do, you done workshops and podcasts, and then we did the comedy workshops, and you had other workshops on creative writing as well. And actually, you get quite. I mean, I know for the comedy workshops we have one or two autistic people, but do you get quite a lot of autistic people accessing the other creative stuff that One Place Sees do?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, where the creative market Yeah, and then we've got a new one. This creative writing. So yeah, it varies. But I mean, not everybody, says that they're autistic when they, so you don't really know. But yeah, it is. But I was going to ask, right? About memory. Is it? I mean, how is your memory? Because I find, because my nephew, his memory is spot on, right? You could move something, and if it's not there in a week, he'll know that it's missing. You know?
Well, I mean, again, we're not a monolith, so I can only talk about my memory. But my memory for something I'm interested in is phenomenal.
Yeah.
My memory for something I'm not interested in is
Yeah.
non-existent,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and because ADHD, if I put something down, I'll walk away from where I've put it, and
Yeah.
then suddenly 2 hours later we'll go, oh, where's my purse? And then
Right.
have to go on a bear hunt to find my purse again. But if I'm interested in something, my memory is incomparable. I'm the one to beat, really.
I think Nicky summed that up perfectly, because it is like that. It's your nephew probably has a good memory for something. You've moved something of that he's interested in,
It's interesting.
and he knows exactly where that is. But yeah, Nicky, I think you summed it. That's my experiences anyway as well. But definitely, sometimes it can be very forgetful. Like, actually, like, we've got a calendar where we're writing all our, like, Kate will write everything on the fridge we do at the start of the week, because I've done it before where I've forgotten to go to a gig because I've so much else going on. Again, there's that processing thing, but our memories can be good, but also when we're overwhelmed, that's when things can fall out your head. Like,
Yeah.
And my memory can play tricks on me.
how's your memory, Ian?
Sorry, who are you?
What day is this?
No. Well, I'm quite quizzes and stuff like that, and remembering really useless stuff. Like, you won the FA Cup in 1982, and where did Elizabeth Line go, and all these sort of really sort of insignificant things they are to me. But I tend to remember them. But try and remember a birthday, or remember to do certain tasks at home. As I say, I've won. I think I must have a wine cellar indoors, because I've won so many bottles of wine at quizzes, and I'm not drunk them all yet. So, winning all these things and all the rest of it. So I've often been asked, why don't you go on a game? But I just think it would be a lot more pressure on a TV in a studio with lights and cameras and everything else, and sitting at home.
Yeah.
I'll watch things like The Chase and stuff like that. And when they get an easy question wrong, I go, well, that's not right. You should know that, and all the rest of it. And you think, hang on, I'm not in the studio. They are. So, but yeah, I've got propensity for remembering pretty useless stuff, and also not great with remembering names and faces. I can look at a face and I'll go, I've had a couple of times where I can't put the name to it, and I've known this person for, and also, like you say, Mark, as well, about overwhelm. Well, there's a lot of overwhelm going on in my mind. That's happened a few times. You forget everything, basically.
If I'm overwhelmed, it's like a fog comes down.
Yeah.
Like my mind isn't working, my thoughts aren't working, my speech isn't working, nothing is working. It's like trying to be a car with no petrol in the tank, or being a mobile with no battery. I literally have to wait until the battery or the petrol comes back to life, and I lose hours in a day that way.
So, like, it happened to me a couple of weeks ago. Like, because I'm taking on all these different projects at the moment. It's really exciting, fantastic. But I don't realise when I'm burning out. And this is it. A lot of people are aware that, okay, I just need to rest and chill. Sometimes I'm not. So sometimes I go at a million miles an hour, and then all of a sudden I'll come to a halt and I'll just, I need a day off work because I'm ill with being overwhelmed. And so actually what Kate's very good at doing now is just checking in on me, going, and she can tell I can't tell when I'm getting agitated, but she can. So she will try and nip that in the bud early. So having actually supportive people around you can really make the world a difference, because, like I have two older brothers and a twin and a mum who's very supportive. And there's a lot of autistic people out there who don't have that support network. And so I'd say to anyone on the spectrum, if you're struggling, try and find a group that of your interest and join them. Like my brothers joined a neurodiverse group, and they play Dungeons and Dragons, which is probably the most autistic thing ever. But and I remember on his group, he's told me this on his group, and someone shared him like, "Oh, Lee, we all like comedy. Shall we go along to this night? It looks like a great bill of comedians." And then my brother went, "Yeah, I might be interested in that, as I know the MC." And it was. He's my identical twin, and so basically I was like, "Yeah, I'm getting myself out there with the diverse group." So, but yeah, anyone on the spectrum as well, like anyone autistic is feeling overwhelmed and not support, I'd say find that interest of yours, and there'll be other people interested in it, and actually bringing that together that will give you that support you need. My own experiences, because. Yeah, I mean, adult services, yes, obviously there's so many different adult services, like One Place East, like a lot of these places you can access, but it's so hard to sort of work up to that. And so I found what helps is, reaching out to people that share your interests.
Absolutely. I would echo all that, and building on that, what I found really helpful, in the workplace and out of the workplace, was just being myself, and sort of weathering the 80% of people who just wrote me off for being weird because I didn't know I was autistic or even ADHD in those days, because of the 20% or even the 2% who got me, because the 2% who got me were neurodivergent and didn't know they were as well. And that is the way, and one way you get a community around you is through your interests, and the other way of getting a community around you is resolutely being yourself, taking off that mask and trusting that if you go through the world unmasked, one person, out in a group will get you, and that person will become your friend, and you only need one, and through that you get a community around you.
And I think the reason I think we fear that is because that sometimes when we make social faux pas, and then people call us out on it, we're scared to even then speak again because we're afraid we'll get judged again. And that's why comedy is quite useful, because if people don't approve of what you're saying, they don't laugh, and then you go, "All right, well, I'll just say something else," and they hopefully will laugh. But like I remember when I was a kid, I was very honest. My mum's friend was like, it was her birthday, and she said, "Oh, I bet you can't guess how old I am." And I went, "I reckon you're about 50 or 60. And she was like, "Why'd you say that?" I went, "Oh, because you've got loads of wrinkles." So I started counting her wrinkles out loud. That wasn't me taking the piss, but to her, she knew about autism. Like my mum had briefed her, going, "My son's autistic. Sometimes this will happen. He might be overtly honest." So I think it's having that understanding as well, and not, if we get something wrong or say something wrong, it's not being malicious. We're not being but we're not. It's about understanding. It's about going, okay, so not necessarily he's done that to be mean. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and ask them if they meant that. And actually, more often than not, we haven't. Don't get me wrong. I've met some autistic people absolutely horrible. I'm not saying we're all like these wonderful angels.
We all know that.
That's just Yeah, but that's just people as a whole. So I think,
well, that's just people as a whole. And the other thing is that, you know, in the same way that we can get it wrong with neurotypicals, so neurotypicals can get it wrong with us. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all doing our best at the end of the day. This is why, you know, for me to stop all the guesswork as to what's happening, I just go in and say, I'm autistic. You know, and people have to know I'm autistic because I lose my words, because I zone out, because I need to leave social gatherings to recover from losing my words and zoning out. Because you know, a lot of the time I just end up listening because I want to talk about what interests me. Nobody is interested in what's interests me, so I may as well listen to what interests them. And if it's just a lot of people talking about their favorite restaurants, I'll just drift off because I'd rather be by myself, you know.
I think it's important to also say that, and either of you stop me if you disagree, but because being autistic, yeah, we make mistakes. It's not an excuse to carry on making those mistakes. Like, I know people who would blame their awful behaviour on, oh well, I'm autistic, so it's okay. No, the difference between, say, an autistic person and non-autistic person is, yes, we will make mistakes maybe before someone else does, but we will learn. But if you let us know what we did, what's happened, we will work on it. Like, so yeah, that's another thing I don't like as well. They go, oh yeah, they're autistic, so it's okay. No, that's not. Again, it goes back to when I was teaching as well. It's like, no, we're trying to help them, like support them to be more socially aware, to interact. Like, yes, you need to make adaptations for us, but the biggest adaptations I would say is having that patience and that understanding. But as I say, we can work on things. We're not incapable of doing that. Just writing us off as, oh, they're always going to be like that, so therefore we're not even going to engage with them. That's what I don't like anyway. But yeah,
I think when it comes to autistic meltdowns, so you know, I have autistics in my circle who get very angry in their meltdown, which can get them into a lot of trouble. If I have a meltdown, I tend to lose my words, and so I'm not above the parapet in the same way. There is a difference between a trouble that is rooted in neurodivergence, which goes across neurotypes, and a trouble which is rooted in who the person is, you know, when actually it's nothing to do with whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical. You know, they're just being apparently I can use the word also in this podcast because
I'm
I've
hoping
already
we can, because we've used it about, me included, we've used it about 5 times now. So
well, there you are.
I love the editing job.
Yeah.
But Ian, do you feel like you've been judged because of your autism?
I've been what?
But do you feel like people judge you for being autistic?
Not really. No, they people do understand. I think people do understand. But going back to what you were saying just previously, I am a lot more honest now than I ever used to be. I used to sit in the corner, say nothing. You know, now I'm quite outspoken, and I think that sort of annoyed a few of my friends. People, oh, you know, oh, Ian, it says a lot more these days. Well, I don't put up with so much now that I used to. I put up with an awful lot in my life, and you know, you have to speak out. I don't like like Mark. I don't like justice or anything to do with that. If something's wrong in any shape or form, I will say so. I will say so, and if it offends somebody, well, too bad. I will never go into the realm of, you know, sort of racism, that sort of stuff. That's not me at all. But
No.
if I have something to say that's honest and straightforward, then I will say it to a person or people. And we'll go, oh, people have known you for years. Oh, Ian, sort of, you know, he's a bit more direct.
but that's bizarre, isn't it? Because it's like, people want you to socialise, but then when you do, no, not like that. It's
Yeah.
Oh
like,
yes, classic one. Yeah.
be damned if you do, be damned if you don't.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
I can't remember a time when I was not judged. I mean, when I was a kid, I was punched, I was kicked, I had my head hit against a wall, I was thrown in stinging nettles, I was spat at, and that's just the violence. But the judgment, I mean, to this, to this day, I can be judged just for walking in the room because I'm not into the room before I do anything, because people can tell that that whatever the playbook is, I'm not following it.
Mm.
And it's just and it's just how it is.
But I think you're right in terms of that does happen a lot. And I want to go back to something Ian said. You call stuff out when you see it, but that's when we can be ourselves. That's when when we're unmasking, and actually. And I think that's why people need to. And I said, you know what? That's a really good trait to have. I think that's one very positive things about being autistic. Actually, if you allow us to be ourselves, we can call stuff out and get it spot on a lot of the time because you're allowing us that, and actually it creates for very honest conversations. But also, I think actually, from my experience. The amount of autistic people I met, we're also ourselves are non-judgmental in terms. I'll give you an example. Like years ago, this was when I was in nursery. This was before my diagnosis, right? So my mum was like, I'd met this friend I was playing football with, and she always uses this example, right? And I was describing, he's oh, what's he like? He's really tall, he's really fast, and we have fun, we have a kick about, he's quite strong. And Mum's like, what's he look like? I went, oh yeah, that's easy. He's tall, he's strong, he's fast, he's got black hair. And she was like, oh, and my mum went, oh, is he the black kid? Because he was the only black kid in school. And I was like, yeah, I think he might be black, but I didn't really notice. And it was that thing of actually we don't really focus on details other people do, which can be more judgmental. Well, actually, I saw him as a mate we were having fun with, we were having a kickabout with, because I didn't choose to focus on the skin color as a detail. I mean, maybe some autistics will, but I definitely, we're actually we see people for who they are. We don't, my experiences anyway, autism is a really positive trait is we see you for you. We don't,
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't like judge you because maybe, we found out you supported Arsenal, so we're going to judge. So it's Zizek's example, or if you're a Liverpool fan, Saifur, like we're not going to judge.
Yeah.
No, the joke aside, like we don't judge you for your past discretions. Obviously, if you keep repeating them, then yeah, we're going to not want to be around you. But we won't make preconceptions about you. Okay, this happened to them in the past, but maybe they're better now, and we see you for the way you act, not for what people. And I think that's actually why a lot of neurodiverse people come together a lot, because we see each other for us and not for again our disability.
Well, we see beyond appearances.
Yes.
We
We're
see
not superficial.
very much. We see beyond appearances, and there is no two ways about it. The vast majority of us are more direct than neurotypicals. My directness has always got me into trouble, and it's the reason why I don't work at the moment.
Right. But then, I don't know. But then I think that's where society can adapt and go like, no, being direct can be good. Like, obviously, if you're direct too often, okay, sometimes you can't hurt. Sometimes it's like, I don't know. I'm not saying you do this, Nick. I'm saying, if someone was really sad because of an incident that happened that day, but you were annoyed with them for something, and you just went, I'm annoyed with you because of this, and you're not realising that they're upset. That's some things maybe us autistics can work on, but I think most of the time, actually, let us be a bit, let us just be direct, because that's the way we know how to be. So,
well, I'm not working because I was the steward and I called out management, and it all sort of deteriorated from there, really. Yeah. I mean, that's that's why I'm not working. But it is the classic autistic thing of direct call out, injustice, whistleblow, all the things. Just being a little bit of a firebrand, which not all autistics are, but certainly, when I was in the workplace, I became the steward to protect myself and protect others, and it just ended up in a bit of a to and a fro.
Yeah, it's kind of what happened in my workplace. I was looking out for others and management like that, but I didn't really understand that if you rub up management the wrong way, that's it. And you're not meaning to, you're just being direct and you're being honest. And I think actually we could do a bit more of that in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't like all this kind of being a certain way to someone and then behind their back acting completely differently. I've never understood why you would ever do that.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say another aspect of my diagnosis is sensory overload as well, especially when I'm on a bus or a train, and you've got these complete, to use the word, talking very loudly down their phone and relaying their dramas to the whole world, and I don't particularly want to hear that, really. Or playing their music. You've got a headphone socket, you've got a pair of headphones, them in.
That's a bugbear.
Absolutely drives me around the bend, that does. And you feel and then the word not coming out. Why don't you off, basically, go and take up the other end of the carriage, something like that, I sort of sit there and have to suffer it. So it's a bit of a sensory overload. I don't like too much noise all at once, a load of tumult, and it gets really it can get quite overwhelming, actually, sometimes.
Because it's a spectrum, I don't get sensory overload in that regard. So that's why it's really interesting hearing that as well, because a lot of autistic people go, no, I need to wear ear defenders sometimes because things could get a bit loud. That's why I'm actually really pleased that in cinemas now they have autism-friendly screenings, which is, I think, really great. But I've never had that issue. But again, this is just what this demonstrates is how we're all on our own journeys with our autism.
Yeah.
I find that if I'm in a pub or a restaurant, I need to have my back against a wall. So if there's a lot of people in there, I've got something behind me. As a comedian, I go to comedy clubs, which are not always particularly sensory friendly, to put it mildly. So I sit at the front so I can pretend the people aren't there, because for me the way to see people is when I'm on a stage and I'm holding a mic. That's my preferred way of meeting people, etc. and so forth. I find I have to find my own way of doing things pretty much in every aspect of life, because the planet's not designed for me with me in mind, and so I have to take up space and just go, well, I'm autistic, I'm going to do it this way, and put up with people thinking I'm weird, because people have always thought I was weird, and they always will, because I am weird compared to them.
I think that's a really lovely point to end on, I think, actually. What do you think, Saifur?
I think we could talk and talk. I mean, it's been a great conversation. It's been really insightful podcast. So thank you to both of the guests. One final question I was going to ask is, where can people go to find support for somebody that that may feel that they're autistic, or somebody that knows that someone
I would recommend the online Facebook groups. So, for instance, I belong to Surprise You're Autistic, but there's also I've Been Autistic All Along, private group. There's Autism, Late Diagnosis and Support. when I learned that I was autistic, my big support was the online Facebook groups, where if you were diagnosed as autistic, self-identified as autistic, or questioning whether you were autistic, you could go and talk to people, ask questions, get answers, and these people had similar experiences to you. And more than anything else, anybody who needs support, I direct to a Facebook group, an online Facebook group, where they can ask questions and get answers and know they're not alone.
Excellent.
Ian, any advice?
Well, I went via the sort of more conventional route, the National Health Service and stuff. It is difficult to try and get specialised help, but if people can, or are concerned about a family member in a way, then I recommend that if they think that this person's on the spectrum, then get them that specialised help. Get them. They're looked at's a bit of a strange phrase, isn't it? More assessed. Yeah, I know. I sounded a bit wrong. Assessed.
That is fine, mate.
That's the word. Assessed. Yeah. Sort of. Yeah. Ooh, you're a bit weird, aren't you? Yeah. Assessed basically, and then you can then make sort of plans to sort of how you sort of progress with that, really. And people say, "Well, did you feel when you got the diagnosis?" Well, it sort of confirmed for what's been happening for most of my previous 44 years existence, really, at that time. So yeah.
And also there's like I echo Nicky's thoughts about groups, social media groups. Meetup actually have a lot of autistic and neurodivergent groups to join, and Meetup's like free, you can sign up to it.
Yeah.
Also, National Autistic Society, you can find services in your local area if you type in like your postcode. National, and it's a helpline as well. So I haven't used it as an adult, but when I was a kid, my mum used it a lot, and it really sort of helped. So yeah, all the things Nicky and Ian said, and National Autistic Society, meetup groups, local services in your area if there is. But yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you to Nicky. Thank you to Ian.
Can I share something very quickly?
Yes, go on.
Yes, Nicky and Ian, they're not just some randomers on this podcast today. We are all going to be at Laugh Able's.
Plug.
We can't see it because it's laminated. Laugh Able Autism Acceptance Month, 3rd of April at Wanstead Library. It's really, really good fun. It's a comedy. It's a disability and mental health comedy night. But every act you see here, including Nicky and Ian, are autistic. So it's a great way of celebrating autism. And our headline act, she recently won Leicester Square New Comedian of the Year. It's called Sally Ann Fellows. She's absolutely brilliant. And that's at Wanstead Library at 7:30. And if you're autistic or disabled, it's only a couple of quid as well. And you can bring your own booze. There's tea and coffee in the break, and there's special prizes. But that's Laugh Able Comedy Night, Autism Acceptance Month, and we'll probably post the links underneath the podcast.
And it's on the screen. It's on the screen now. It's on the screen. It'll be on the screen. So perfect, excellent. Thank you again to Nicky and Ian, and big thank you to you, Mark, for being my wingman for today.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
A lot of fun. Very interesting.
Hope you all enjoyed it, and see you next time.
Happy Autism Awareness Day. Bye.
Happy.